It's only natural.
Natural.
A window's got to have its wall. Wall. Whatever weather, it's always a pleasure. Welcome anytime you call. You can stay inside and try to hide. The Holy Ghost will be your guide. Call the magic number and wait. There goes another victim of the crime of never listening. Well, he's got too many things on his plate. The sensation of five-star show. A touch of grace, a touch of anything goes. What can you do? Everybody's cool. Taking in the view. Everybody's cool. A sensation of five-star show. This is the place and we'll take the front row. It's something new. Everybody's cool. Taking in the view. Everybody's cool. It's only natural. Sometimes you take your eye off the ball. Nobody's perfect. Persistence is worth it. If something's gonna change after all. Panic in the face of nature. Be a friend, don't be a stranger. Where there is a will, there's a way.
There is a way.
Shake your fist and bite your lips and set sail to 1,000 ships. Somewhere sunny, far, far away. The sensation of five-star show. A touch of grace, a touch of anything goes. What can you do? Everybody's cool. Taking in the view. Everybody's cool. The sensation of five-star show. This is the place and we'll take the front row. It's something new. Everybody's cool. Taking in the view. Everybody's cool.
Living like we do as the days repeat. Wake up to the news as we fall asleep. Everybody's cool, full and incomplete. Everybody's cool. Everybody's cool.
The sensation. The sensation.
Everybody's cool, full and
Everybody's cool. Everybody's cool. The sensation of five-star show. A touch of grace, a touch of anything goes. What can you do? Everybody's cool. Taking in the view. Everybody's cool. Woke up with a fat lip, another head trip, nothing goes my way. Flatline on a backflip,
Welcome everyone to the third round of Season 12 of the Alpha Touring Challenge. Canadian Tire Motorsport Park has been home to 11 past races in this series. We've visited the track 6 times total. This is our 7th. I believe that makes it the 3rd most visited track in series history, behind Road Atlanta and Laguna Seca. Tonight's challenge, it's an hour-long endurance race, and they are getting ready for the open qualifying today. But real quick, we'll take a look at what the drivers have in store for them. The track temp, it's middling. You know, it's definitely higher, around 28 to 30 Celsius, so it's not so cold that there is no grip, but it's not so warm that there is no grip. It's in a pretty good sweet spot. It's a bit cloudy today, but if the sun comes out during the race, the track may warm up and the drivers may have to start thinking about tire wear a little bit more. The 2 pit stops will also help the drivers. A 60-minute race with 2 pit stops means you can play around with the timing of all kinds of things. And it's also going to give the drivers a chance to cool those tires off if they are dealing with tire wear, tire heating. Those 2 pit stops are a nice little break. So we'll go down to the track now. Ben Aiken is coming out of turn number 1. We're looking down at him, and this is the Delta class on track right now, and they get the first half of qualifying, so the first 7 minutes and 30 seconds they are going to be setting laps. So you see the Delta field actually not as large today. Canadian Tire Motorsport Park as host to, I think it's 37. Yes, we have 37 cars in the field today. That is one of the largest fields in series history, but it also happens to be about 20 cars fewer than last week. So the drivers that were able to make it here tonight are going to be dealing with slightly less traffic than usual, and they're going to be big fans of that, I imagine. So Ben Aiken is leading the field. He led them off pit road. He's followed by Brian Son just behind. So those two will set a lap first. They'll set the mark for the Delta field. And further on down, you have one of last week's Delta winners. He won the 2nd race at Oulton Park. It's Zachary Bowman. And he's coming around to finish his first lap. And the times are coming onto the board now. And Bowman does go fastest with a 26.6. Aiken and Son close behind. And then Jason Lynn is a little further back in the 27s. A few more drivers setting their laps now. Here comes Brian Inagaki with a purple middle sector. And across the line, he goes 2nd in the Delta class, just behind Zachary Bowman, slots ahead of fellow 4OG's driver Ben Aiken. So 4 drivers in the Delta class have managed to eke into the 126s, and that's Bowman, Inagaki, Aiken, and Son. And then Spencer Clark is the first driver in the 27s that's in the Delta class, still out there running. They have time for 2, maybe 3 more laps. Mitchell Rickmeyer running ahead on track there of Tyler Stuckey, and Stuckey's actually going to let Spencer Clark through. A little bit of traffic management. The Rickmeyer is currently running 6th, 0.8 off of Delta pole. Let's watch him run through this final section here. The sweeping right into a quick left right that spits you back out onto the front straight. Getting that final turn correct is really difficult. You have to be patient, but you have to carry the speed. And here comes Rickmeyer across the line, and he does not improve. But Brian Son did. Brian Son is currently on Delta pole, just under 26.3, and then just over 26.3 is Christian Ost. But Brian Inagaki leaps to pole here. He already has 1 Delta pole to his name this season, trying to tack on another with a 2/10 gap over Brian Son. Lewis Gilbert jumps into 5th place on the leaderboard with a 26.5. And now we look at the bottom for any more improvements as the Delta drivers start their penultimate laps. I believe everyone on track will get one more lap after this, even Zachary, who's coming across the line now. As long as they start a lap before 7.5 minutes, they can finish it. So he should also be able to get 2 laps in. We're going to look in on Brian Ston because he's coming through the final sector. And he has a green sector 2. Brian Son's also on an improvement here. Both of them could find time to hunt down Inagaki. And Son does improve. He goes on to pole, and they are knocking the door of the 125s. And Mikulicek, he comes in with a 126.5, keeps him in 6th. He's just behind Lewis Gilbert there. Clark is now about to come around over the start-finish line, and no improvement from him. And Lautenschlager has just jumped Zachary Bowman, and Jess Rakowski comes in. She lays down a time of a 126.6 and slots in nicely to that P7. And Lewis Gilbert, a purple sector 1, a green sector 3, and he is within 2/10 of Delta Pole now. That was a good lap, and now they're all starting their final laps. And Zachary Bowman will come around to finish what will be his second to last lap. Got a lot of curb there. That may be an off track, hard to tell. He'll come across. And no improvement. So final time of asking for these guys. Ben Aiken improved his first sector. Fredo Rizla yet to set a time. Jason Lynn improving as well. Aiken not so good in the middle sector. He's looking for something. Mounts the curb. Gets on the throttle on exit. Son following close behind. Aiken, no improvement. No, you don't get one from Son either. So now Lynn, he has a 127.1 across the line, and a 127.2, not enough to improve. And these guys now finishing their laps. Rickmeyer across the line, and he will only barely improve. Spencer Clark jumps to P3 the last second, and Brian Saab is on a flyer here. He's purple in the middle sector. Can he do something at the last second? Goes P5, but Gilbert goes purple in the last sector, jumps him again, goes P3, and they're all so close to each other. And now the last Delta driver across the line will be Zachary Bowman. He improved in that first sector, but let's see if he has anything going in the third sector, because the second sector wasn't looking too good. And out of the final corner, he's currently down in 11th in the Delta class, and he's not going to be improving. That is it for Bowman. So now we get to look at the Alpha class. And we're looking at, let's see, that's Connor Acatella. He's laying through John Lazan. Ahead of them is Matt Zepka. I think it is the Slug. Yes, Slugnificent has led the Alpha class out. And they are led by double yellow, 2 yellow flag, and another double yellow car. So that whole organization dominating the front of this qualifying group. They wanted to get out and get out early and are out of the final corner. Slug will finish his out lap, and these guys will start their first flying laps. Last, a little wiggle from the Slug there on that first lap. And this first lap, I don't think is really going to matter. As you saw, it didn't really matter for the Delta drivers either. It takes a lap or two for those tires to really come in. As you see, he's going to let Polasek through here. And I don't think, they're going to go too wide. So definitely not a lap that either of those guys is really going to care about. Last week, Polasek, he won at VIR. He is definitely one of the championship favorites in this season. Almost pipped his teammate for the season 11 title. But last week came home P2 and in the first race, and then the second race was P4. So today, back with an endurance challenge. looking to get back on top. His rivals, his close rivals, Eric Goldner, Micah Hendricks, Logan McKenzie, all here today as well. So there's sure to be a good fight at the front, just as there is sure to be a good fight at the back in the Delta class, because that class incredibly close together. James Carr, we're looking at him come down the back stretch now. He actually holds the lap record for this track, set it back in Season 10, and has won here before. Looking to have a good day here after some rough first events for him. And the first lap times are being set, so let's check in on those now. And Daniel Mills has set the pace for the Alpha class. Eric Goldner going 125.6. And remember, the Delta pole was a 126 even, essentially. So anyone slower than a 126 dead is going to be starting behind some Delta drivers. Francois Schink picks up a 125.6 to go third fastest. It'll be the second lap that really matters for a lot of these drivers. Looking at David Thomas here. He came across the line on that first lap, P7. Bertolucci, P2 with a 25.6. And Polasek is now looping around to finish his second qualifying lap. And I think this will be the first one that's really representative of the pace that the field will be looking for today. Just a couple corners to go for the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver. His second flying lap. These tires only last 4 or 5 laps. It's about how many laps they're going to get anyway. And he goes all the way to a 125.1. And the pace is set by Logan McKenzie. Just ekes him out. And Daniel Mills slots in between them with a 125.1. Almost on the spot. Now Matthew Mayer, Eric Goldner, John Lazon, Bertolucci, Schink, Mitchell, Zepka. The field starting to find some spots to fit in there. Zepka, I think he may have gone off track there. Hard to see. Micah Hendricks gets into P5 with a 125.4, and right behind him is James Carr, 5/1000ths slower than him on that lap. But we still have up to 3 more laps for these guys to finish. JB Dejoux coming through the first corner. He is hanging out in P20. Would like a little bit of an improvement. Right behind him is Jacob Wiley, last season's Delta champion. Michael Polasek is the first car on an improvement right now, along with McKenzie. And here comes Polasek through the last set of corners once again. And McKenzie is purple in this second sector. The Slug and Mare also on potential improvements. Polasek is going to come across the start-finish line now. Can he improve? Can he jump to pole? Yes, it's a 124.93. And McKenzie, though he went purple in the second sector, does not improve in the third sector. He improves his lap by 200ths, and it's not enough to catch Polasek. Mayer does improve his lap, stays in fourth. Mike De Almeida finds improvement. Zepka, Acatella, Darnell, they are all improving here. David Thomas coming across the line. He gets up to 126 dead. Micah Hendricks jumps to P3 with a 125 dead. That's a lap that he needed. Francois Schink, P6 with a 25.3, and Raymond 2 just behind him. And these guys setting very similar lap times, very close to each other. JB across the line improves to a 26.2. Wiley across as well with an improvement, and Bertolucci up to P6 with a 25.3. And now we wait again for what might be the last really good lap from a lot of these drivers. We'll go on board with McKenzie as they approach the final section here. At the end of the lap, Micah Hendricks is off at the top of Moss, and he is on pit lane, so he is locked in there. He will start no better than third in today's race. And here we go, across the line for Polasek and McKenzie. Polasek does not improve. McKenzie does improve more, but it's not enough to catch Polasek. The Slug gets a better lap in there, 25.7. So far this time around, only McKenzie and Slug have improved. Daniel Mills goes purple in the middle sector, but fails to improve the overall lap. Lazon jumps to P5 there at the last second. And there's Eric Goldner with a 125.052. And look at how tight the top of the field is. Darnell finds an improvement on that last lap. Chris Young as well. And James Carr there at the very end. Can Shink improve as well? Yes, he does. A 25.2. There are still people on track and trying to improve. JB trying to get out 20th along with Jacob Wiley. And Michael Polasek still on a lap. Though I don't think he's going to need to improve. All of his closest competitors are done with qualifying. But he may have a chance to improve here. Let's see what happens when he passes the Sector 2 gate. It's yellow, so this may be the end of qualifying. Michael Polasek is going to be on pole once again. That is going to be his second pole of the season, and it comes here at Mosport, and he does improve there at the end just to make a statement, put an exclamation point on that qualifying session. When we return, the race will kick off here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. 1 hour of endurance racing coming up next.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn. It's a new day, it's a new life for me, yeah. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. I'm
Well, qualifying has concluded and the drivers are getting gridded up and ready to race. So let's take one look at the starting grid for today's race. And the Alpha class has taken the entire top 20 of this field. Polasek and McKenzie lock out the front row for Yellow Flag Motorsports. Then Eric Goldner, Micah Hendricks, and Daniel Mills round out the top 5. Goldner picked up a victory last week at Alton Park Polasek picked up a victory at VIR. Will one of them be back on top this week, or will Micah Hendricks be able to slot ahead of them? He picked up that final win at Oldton Park. Maybe it'll be McKenzie or Mills. Neither of them have a win yet this season. Schink, Lausanne, Carr, Mayer, and Bertolucci round out the top 10. Breakfast for Dinner and Sim Racing Grid showing their usual strength. Then at 2, Almeida, The Slug, Mitchell, Darnell, Acatella, Akers, Thomas, Son, and Zepka. I was wrong there. One Delta driver snuck into the top 20. It was Brian Son. And then further down the grid. So you do have Son on Delta pole. Then Brian Inagaki, our Delta pole sitter from, I believe, VIR, starts second in the Delta class, 21st overall. Then Lewis Gilbert starting third. Spencer Clark, Brian Saab, JB Dejoux, Christian Ost, Jacob Wiley, Ben Aiken, Chris Young, Paul Mikulicek, Jess Rakowski, Craig Lautenslaughter, Zachary Bowman, Jason Lynn, Mitchell Rickmeyer, Tyler Stuckey, and then at the back of the grid, Fuad Al-Rijla. After today, there will be 10 races left in Season 12 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, but a long ways to go. The championship fight still not even fully clear to us at this moment. Right now, Polasek has a very slim lead, but no drop weeks taken into account. Not even 4 races done, so anything could happen here in Season 12. Another little caveat, the TCRs are getting rain tires, wet tires. So later this season, there might be a couple of wet forecasts coming our way, which could throw a wrench in the late championship battle. But first, we have to focus on the early championship battle. On pole, Michael Polasek. We're waiting for the rest of the grid. You see Goldner there, and I think we're missing... There's McKenzie. Now just a couple of cars left to grid. 10 seconds and we will go racing here at Mosport. We've done it 11 times. What's one more? 1 hour of racing is about to kick off here at Mosport. Michael Polasek will lead us off. And they're away. Polasek gets a good start. McKenzie ahead of Goldner going into turn number 1. Goldner's going to be under pressure from Hendricks, who got a great start. And they roll through 1. Polasek in the lead. Hendricks and Goldner side by side. Carr going out wide, and they are going to be 2 by 2 heading down through turn number 2. Nearly 40 cars piling through here. And they come down to turn number 3. Goldner's looking back on the inside of Hendricks, but I don't think he's going to get it. Hendricks will hold on to P3. 2 double yellow cars running around the outside there. And here they come. Looking down from Moss. Polasek is in the lead. Oh, and Daniel Mills on the inside of Francois Schink there. A little slippery, but he manages to gather it up. Oh, and there's his teammate off, and another driver off. That's Ben Aiken and Chris Young, both with damage and potentially out of this race very, very early. Polasek and McKenzie lead the field all the way down the backstretch. Zepka looking for some kind of move on David Thomas there as they head into this final corner. And now the battle for the Delta lead. Lewis Gilbert's ahead, so this is for P2. Son and Ost side by side through the final corners. I think Ost is going to have an advantage here, but only for a moment. A little lunge from Son up the inside, and they're still going to be alongside each other out of the final corner. And Spencer Clark is now going to join this little fight. And through turn number 1, Lewis Gilbert leads the Delta class, and Son and Ost are still going at it. In the background, we have a car off. That is Brian Saab. Oh no, and there goes Son. He goes a little wide there. Both of them going a little wide in the turn, and that is going to be it for Son. He goes just a bit off into the grass, and Mitchell does the same a turn ahead, so both those drivers dropping down the order just a bit. And a lot of drivers are going to be taking advantage of that one. I'm hearing all kinds of awful noises and collisions, people stacking up at Moss. Michael Polasek still leads this race at the moment. And we are about to come to the end of lap number 2 here at Mosport. These guys finally starting to settle down. I see 2, maybe 3 cars that didn't make it past the first lap and a half. Further back in the field, I see Zepka is now trying that move on David Thomas, looking to the right side, but it doesn't work for him. However, up ahead, Raymond 2 is on the outside of Cooper Akers. Out of the last corner, I think Akers is going to get him, and he does. And further back, Spencer Clark now wants a piece of Christian Ost, but he's not going to be able to throw the car in there hard enough into turn number 1, and he'll have to back out of it. And Chris Young comes out of the pits now with a fixed car. And a lot of cars going by here. You see Brian Son has slipped down to 9th in the Delta class. And Fuad Rizla, oh, big contact. I saw him get a little squirrely there. And Tyler Stuckey is going to lose out in that interaction. And look at this, Spencer Clark's now gone off track. That is at turn 3. He's gone very wide, so he is going to drop back into 6th in the Delta class, while Rakowski goes around the outside of Lautenschlager for P7 in class. Further up the field, James Carr defending from Ian Bertolucci, and they're just trying to hold on to the group, the lead group of Polasek, McKenzie, Hendricks, Goldner, and then Mills and Schenk trying to hold on to that group, and Carr and Bertolucci trying to hold on to the rest of them, and Lazan and Slug Davison not too far back from the rest of that group. Christian Ost still in the fight here. He's P3 Delta class. P2, he's looking right at him. Jacob Wiley is right behind. But when he went a bit wide there, and Wiley's looking for something, but I don't think he's going to be able to find it. Passing here, going to be difficult. It is difficult to finish an overtake. Just the way the corners are laid out is one of those tracks. So you really have to focus on beating your opponent through every phase of these corners. And Raymond 2 is going to come under pressure from David Thomas. Thomas on the right side of turn 3. And they're going to go wheel to wheel as they come down to the entry of Moss. And I think 2 is going to be able to come through there as Thomas backs out. And they head up the hill once again. The lead pack seems to be in a bit of a holding pattern. Polasek is starting to pull away from McKenzie a bit and create a gap, and that's what he needs. And I just saw a position flip. Oh, that was just Mike D'Almeida, I think, blinking around a little bit there. But you see all three double yellow cars in shot right there, split by Matthew Mayer. And this is the slug at the front of that group. And he's hanging on to the outside of the top 10 as Cooper Akers and Raymond 2 going at it again. I think 2 is going to finally get him into the penultimate corner. He finishes the pass, and out of the final corner, Raymond 2 is into 15th overall, just ahead of Akers. And after the first lap action, everyone has calmed down a little bit here. It's difficult to make a pass here when you're just trying to keep the car on track as best you can. And speaking of keeping the car on track, I've seen somebody, I think it was Paul Mikulicek, going off track. And he's come back on just ahead of Spencer Clark. Yes, I can confirm it was him that went off track, and now he's going off track again. He goes a bit wide. Clark's going to go through, and Rakowski may be the big winner here as she goes around, she goes around Paul, but can she get around Spencer? Clark on the left side, Rakowski on the right, up through Moss, and Clark wanted to go for a little over-under, but Rakowski he didn't clear her and couldn't finish the move. Had to let her go, and Rakowski basically gains, she's gained 3 positions in the last couple of laps. She's all the way up to P5 in the Delta class. And now, Mikulicek and Son are wheel-to-wheel into the final corner. Rakowski may have to defend here as well against Clark. But Clark not able to keep a nose in, and David Thomas has gone off, and that car's destroyed. The right rear tire is not, or the left rear tire was not even making contact with the ground. That was heavy damage at the final corner. He must have gone off and just slammed the left side of the car into that tire barrier. We're looking at the Slug defending against Matthew Mayer. Mayer's been all over the back of him the last couple laps. But so far, the Slug has been able to hold him back. And now McKenzie and Hendricks side by side through Moss. And Hendricks has an inside line here. This could get dicey. He may be ahead of the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver. But no, McKenzie's going to come back at him down the back straightaway. And Goldner's going to be loving this. He'll be looking for an opening here. Anything that he can find that will allow him to get in on this fight as they come down to the end of the straightaway. Hendricks is going to have a slight advantage over McKenzie. All he's got to do is get clear of him so he can cut across his nose. And as they come to the penultimate corner, he's not going to do it. McKenzie's going to still have a nose in there. Hendricks goes really wide. McKenzie's back in it. Coming around the final corner. Still side by side for second overall in this race. Goldner goes to the right, looks to the middle. Hendricks loses out coming out of the final corner. McKenzie's going to try to send it around the outside. Hendricks puts it in deep. They contact. Hit McKenzie goes wide, and they're still wheel to wheel. David Thomas coming out of the pits. Hendricks has to go a bit narrow, and he almost slides off the track, keeps it on, but McKenzie sending up the inside and is back into second place. And through all that, Hendricks managed to keep Goldner behind him, but now Daniel Mills and Francois Schenck are on top of this group, and all 5 cars are now about to fly up to Moss, stacked up here. There goes Polasek, a 2.7 lead for him now with all that fighting. There goes the group of 5. And then there is Ian, James, and John. And there's the Slug, Mayer, Almeida, and Acatella. And there goes Raymond too. And oh, we are seeing Mark Darnell break into a big slide there. And I think he has contacted the wall. And he safely rejoins. And yes, left side damage to that car. Going back to the battle for P2. Does Hendricks look to the outside? Did not manage to get alongside on this lap. Has to stay back there. But he definitely seems to want to be in that position. And we'll bounce back to Mayer. He still hasn't been able to find any inroads on the Slug, but Mark Darnell's on the right side of the track here, and he, with his damage, he's going to have to let both Ost and Saab go through. They're battling for the Delta podium. Right now, your Delta leader is still Lewis Gilbert. And Gilbert has a 1.5 second lead over Inagaki at this stage of the race. And we are just under 11 minutes in. So not even close, really, to the first round of pit stops. Drivers still settling in and just getting into a groove. This little group ahead of Gilbert, Akers, Zepka, and Mitchell, they're battling for 15th. And Akers has been holding on to the front of this group for a little bit. Back up front, coming out of Moss, it doesn't look like Hendricks is going to be close enough this time to challenge McKenzie. Goldner is really close to the back of that Audi. And McKenzie breaking the toe a little bit. And back behind, Mayer alongside the Slug. And down the back stretch, the Slug is going to be defending on the outside here. Not the best position to be in coming up to this corner, but you can make it work. And they're going to throw it in. Slug around the outside, Mayer on the inside, and the Slug's not going to be able to hold that. And Mayer is promoted into the top 10, and he finally defeats the double yellow trio here. Now, all 3 of them are lined up behind and chasing him as he goes to try and chase down Razan for P9. And then back up front, McKenzie, look at this gearbox. Hendricks very close. Inagaki's on pit road now, along with Brian Saab. Oh, and Hendricks gets a little bit into McKenzie there, and we're trying to check on Inagaki. He and Saab don't look like they have damage, so this may be a strategy play. And yes, it is fuel. Okay, so we are seeing a little strategy gem from Inagaki. We'll check back in on this group. Out of Moss. McKenzie gets a good exit there. Akers under pressure from Zepka into turn number 2, or excuse me, this is into Moss. Zepka going into a little bit of a slide, trying to stay on the outside, but Akers closes him off, and Mitchell is looking for an opportunity. Can't find one yet. The Delta leader, Lewis Gilbert, has pulled up to the back of this group of 3. He's chasing them down the back straightaway. Zepka looking to the left. He's going to try something, and Mitchell's going to try and follow him. Mitchell shoving him all the way into the corner. Akers going to hold the inside. Zepka goes really wide, trying to bring it back, and he does, and he may have this move done. And he's worked the outside of Akers quite beautifully there, and he has proven that it can be done. So Zepka moves up into 15th. And as long as Lewis Gilbert is stuck on the back of that pack, Christian Ost will be happy to see it, because he needs him to be held up if he's going to have a chance at catching him up. And of course, originally it was Brian Saab who was P2, but he has pitted onto an alternate strategy, so we won't see that play out for a bit. The battle for the Delta lead could come down to the very end of this race. Battle for the Alpha lead, Michael Polasek is 4.4 seconds up on his teammate McKenzie. McKenzie's been battling with Hendricks off and on first 10 minutes of this race, which allowed Polasek to really open this lead up and stretch his legs. And he has definitely done so. McKenzie still leads this group of five-ish cars. Hendricks looks outside again, still can't find anything. And every time that happens, you're seeing McKenzie take a shallower line of the corner to make sure Hendricks can't dive him. These guys are losing time. And they are losing it fast. A 4.5 second gap to the leader now. Spencer Clark is on the back of JB Dejoux and looking for 21st. This is a battle for 21st overall. And Clark is currently running P3 in the Delta class on track, though if you factor in pit stops, he's more like P5. So trying to close a little bit of the gap up to Christian Ost. Ost is 2.4 seconds up the road from the Sia driver at this moment. And now Cooper Akers. Zepka has kind of detached from this group, so now it's Damon Mitchell who's looking to get through, and Lewis Gilbert trying to get around without getting caught up in all this, because he is that Delta class leader at this juncture. And on the back of that group, that's a lapped car. I think that may be Fuad Al-Rijla. And then Jacob Wiley's a little further back from them. Going down the back straightaway, again, focusing in on McKenzie and Hendricks. Hendricks is going to have a shot on this lap. He'll go side by side with McKenzie, and they go wheel to wheel through the corner. McKenzie on the right side, Hendricks trying to look for something, and I think McKenzie may have gone a bit wide on that corner exit, and Hendricks has finally gotten past the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver, and it is the Kroc Promotions Audi into P2 here at Mosport. We'll see if this changes the complexion of how this group is running, especially in comparison to Michael Polasek, because that gap now almost 5 full seconds. Mike D. Almeida, look at this, all the double yellow drivers. Is it papaya rules? Is it, what would it be for double yellow? Is it eggplant rules? The slug trying to keep Mike D. Almeida and Acatella behind him. I wonder how much they're just kind of cruising, waiting for the first pit stop. But funny to see that whole group of drivers all together there. Where else on the track can we check in? Well, Daniel Mills and Francois Schenk are going side by side through Moss, and Mills has taken an opportunity here to I'm actually not sure who was ahead there, but Mills stays ahead of Schenk, and I don't think Schenk will necessarily feel any kind of way about that. Both he and Mills, their number one priority should just be to hang on to the back of this group. I'm sure all of them have two things in mind. Don't lose Polasek anymore and stay together. Mitchell on the left side of Akers. This is the move he's been looking for P16 on track. He ekes ahead as they approach the corner. And as they turn in, Akers noses ahead, but oh no, Mitchell, oh no, and a huge crash, and somehow Jacob Wiley misses the spinning car of Cooper Akers. But I think Akers' day is done, and John Lazon's under pressure from Matthew Mayer. He's made his way up to the breakfast for dinner driver, and I don't think there was contact there. If there was, it was the worst net code I've ever seen, but it sure looked like John just kind of got loose, managed to keep it on track. And he has the double yellow trio behind him, looking to hunt him down. And that was a weird series of events. But Cooper Akers looked like he just got spun off the nose of Damon Mitchell. We've seen it happen plenty of times so far this season. So it's unfortunate to see his day end like that. We'll go on board with Spencer Clark. He's still trying to find a way around the 621. And they're rolling up into Moss. They're not that far off of Christian Ost, and Ost is losing track of the Delta leader here. So as a result, these guys are going to feel a lot more confident about just fighting Ost for that P2, not worrying about losing any potential time to the Delta leader, because he's already quite a ways up there. And let's check back in with the front. And by the front, I mean the slug, because we're going to go to P11, and Mike de Almeida looking to the right. Slug will stay ahead. And losing track of John Lazon just a bit. And Lewis Gilbert has gotten around Damon Mitchell. And Mitchell's going to try and send it back up the inside through turn 2, and he does. I think that Mitchell was ahead of him. There's a lot been going on with that group. And Raymond 2 is the car ahead of that group, and he's kind of running his own race, trying to catch up to all those double yellow guys. Up front, Hendricks, McKenzie, Goldner, Mills, they're all in the same order as they were before. Schenk as well, still on the tail end of that group. Of course, we were just looking at the Delta leader, Lewis Gilbert. But further in the Delta pack, you see Mitchell Rickmeyer and Jason Lynn running with each other. They're 8th and 9th in the Delta class, respectively. Craig Lautenslager is not too far ahead of them, battling with Brian Son. They have been duking it out for 6th and 7th. And then Jess Rakowski and Paul Mikulicek are 4th and 5th. So you have the Delta top 10 is separated into a bunch of pairs right now. And I think Son was looking for a move. Whoa, he got himself very loose. Onto the grass. Can he save it? Yes, he does. Keeps it on track. Well done. That was a hairy moment. And we have another taker for pit lane. And I do think we're going to start seeing them, seeing people come down within the next 2 or 3 laps. I don't think the fuel will last much longer than that. We're looking at, Clark and JB. Oh, they both got around Christian Ost fairly quickly. So Clark moves into 2nd in the Delta class. And he's climbed, he started in 23rd overall, now up to 19th. So he's having a good day, clean day. 1/3 of the way through this race, anything could happen. Both he and Ost very much are right there in case something happens to Gilbert. But these are really the closest battles on track that we've been checking in on. And Lukowski has closed up, is starting to close up to the back of this group as well. So if Clark and Dejoux start to fight, then she could find herself in the battle for a Delta podium. And Clark at this point, with pit stops close, you're looking to do one of 2 things. Either save your stuff, keep saving your stuff behind, or, ideally you want to be ahead of JB before pit stops. So that's worth about a half-second advantage. But if you can't get around them, don't lose time. Just sit there and save tires, save fuel. Rakowski has come on pit lane, and she looks like she may have gotten the last pit box there as she's come in at quite an angle. That is legal, and she has pulled away. That is amazing that she managed to get that to work. Brian Son has also come down pit road. So both of them come down a lap or two before I think everyone else is going to here. Polasek, as we approach pit stops, 5.4 second lead. Hendricks and the trailing group. Hendricks is going to pit on this lap, so he has not saved as much fuel as the rest of these guys. And everyone else is going to stay out here, actually. McKenzie, Goldner, Mills, Schink, Bertolucci. The Slug has come down pit road, leaving his teammates out, as that part of the field is starting to coalesce a bit. So it'll be interesting to see how they look once pit stops have wrapped up. And speaking of that little group, Lazan is under a lot of pressure from Almeida here. Oh, and Lazan's going to get loose on his corner again. Every time we look at Lazan in this corner, he's having a little moment. We're 2 for 2, and he is going to lose both of those spots to Double Yellow and a Yellow Flag Motorsports driver as well, as Raymond 2 ekes ahead of him. Jacob Wiley, Craig Lautenslager, and Jason Lynn have all pulled down pit lane. So some more takers this time around. Polasek is coming into the final sector now. McKenzie and Goldner are definitely going a little faster on this lap than they have in previous laps. So let's see how this plays out. Will they have to come down pit road? The leader is on pit lane. Daniel Mills is on pit lane, but McKenzie, Goldner, and Schink have all saved enough fuel to go another time around, which means McKenzie will pick up a bonus point for leading a lap. James Carr has also managed to save enough to stay out. Let's see, both of the Double Yellow drivers, Mike D'Almeida and Connor Acatella, will go another time around. So a couple of nice fuel saves here. Everyone else is down pit lane. The Delta leader, Lewis Gilbert, on pit road as well. And pit lane is very busy. That's a great camera looking at the back of those boxes. But basically all the Delta drivers in the field pulling into the box now. And we're just waiting to see who will get away first here, as Gilbert is out of the stall. And Christian Ost has come out ahead of Spencer Clark in the background. So that's a little get. And then where are the other Delta drivers, the ones that pitted earlier? You have Brian Son. He's not one of the ones that pitted earlier. One of the ones that pitted earlier crashed. That's Brian Saab. And actually, both of them may have run into trouble. Oh, or no, excuse me. The other person who pitted earlier was Brian Inagaki. And look at this. He is all the way up in 15th. He's jumped Wiley, Darnell, Mitchell. What is his lead on the Delta class at this point? It's a 7.3 second gap to Lewis Gilbert behind. So if he can pull off doing this race with just one more pit stop, that'll be huge. The rest of the top of the field is down pit lane. Micah Hendricks comes around turn 1, and he is through. He stays ahead of that group. Goldner beats McKenzie off pit lane, so those two flip. And then Mills ends up behind Schink, so those two flip as well. Mike D'Almeida has come off of pit road, and he'll be just ahead of Raymond 2, just behind the Slug. Connor Acatella had a slower stop, ended up behind John Lazan, a little further off of his teammates. A lot of shifting around here, and Acatella has heavy front end damage. I wonder if he picked that up on pit entry and then didn't take the fast repair. The Slug and Mike D'Almeida wheel to wheel towards Moss, and the Slug will stay ahead. Okay. These Velocitors all going at it as Raymond goes a little wide there, but he manages to gather it up. Brian Inagaki, Matt Zepka goes through on him, but Inagaki still with a gargantuan Delta lead after that nice pit strategy at the start of the race. We'll see if it pays off. We'll see if he can get to the end without having to stop again. He stopped on lap 8, and he took 8 seconds worth of fuel. It's going to be really close. It'll really depend on how much fuel he put in the car, obviously, but we'll keep an eye on it. Everyone else pitted at the latest at lap 17, so that's about a 9-lap difference. So that changes things for Lewis Gilbert, for Spencer Clark, for Christian Ost. They're off this strategy at Inagaki's so far ahead. They kind of need to hope that something happens to him, I think, at this point. 30 minutes left in the race, so still a lot of time left. Gilbert going for a move on Wiley, a little slide job, and Wiley is going to try and come back for the over-under into turn number 2. Looks to the right, but it's hard to pass around the outside here. Maybe even impossible, and Gilbert will stay ahead. So Hendricks is trying, he's desperately trying to break the toe of Eric Goldner. And I think McKenzie is also in danger here of losing the toe of Goldner and Hendricks. And then same deal with Schink. They're all sort of right on the cusp of losing grasp of each other. And I think the Slug may be under pressure here again from his teammate. No, he's just getting a huge shove into the corner. That's a bump draft. So as we approach the halfway point of this race, it has been the Michael Polasek show. He's led almost every single lap, aside from a couple during the pit cycle. And this has just been a perfect performance from him thus far. After not being able to pick up a win at Oldham Park last week, back on top, exactly what he wanted to see. And he only has a 4.4 second lead now. That was at nearly 6 seconds before pit stops. So they have made some inroads. They've taken about 1.5 seconds out of him. And since they've come off pit lane, Polasek's lead hasn't really grown. Mills and Schink side by side out of Moss, and Schink will stay ahead of Mills in this circumstance, but that is going to pretty much permanently break them off from Logan McKenzie. That cost them over a half second to him. I don't think there's any way they're hanging on to the back of the lead field now, so they will have to duel for the top 5 unless something happens to the cars ahead. But this is the closest battle on track right now as everyone sorts themselves out after the first round of pit stops. And Polasek's coming up to lap traffic now. That's Zachary Bowman that he's looking at the back of. And I think this is going to be a trend for the rest of this race. If you look at the track map now, you'll see Polasek, the 32nd and 31st cars of Bowman and Aiken are in front of him. He's gone by Bowman. He's not going to reach Aiken for a bit. And then if he reaches the next group of cars, then the lap traffic will get a bit more dense. And I think it's very likely he does reach that next group, as there are still almost a full 30 minutes left in this race session. So it seems like the busiest guy in this race, the busiest group in this race, have been the double yellow drivers. Slugnificent, the Almeida, Raymond 2, John Lazon. They are all in a little 4-car band. Easily the most tightly knit group on the track. And out of Moss, Slug, who ran a 126 dead on the last lap, is leading this field with a decent amount of pace. But they are just off of the pace of everyone ahead. So it looks like this may end up being a battle for 10th by the end of this race. And we see some team orders, actually. I think we just saw those transpire as Mike D'Almeida slips ahead of the Slug. Stays ahead of Raymond Connor Acatella is slowly catching back up to this group as well. And then from there on back, it's a big gap to Matt Zepka in 15th. Lewis Gilbert running in the 57. He's been looking at the back of Jacob Wally for a little bit. He was the Delta leader before pit stops. And then those pit stops cycled him out of the lead thanks to Brian Inagaki's great strategy. And it's unfortunate that we didn't also get to see Brian Saab play that strategy out because both of them went on to it. But so far, Inagaki looks like he is going to be the one who benefits from it. Some of these drivers starting to bunch back up and battle for position. You see Brian Son looking to the back of Jess Rakowski. They've been duking it out for P6 for quite some time now, even before pit stops. We saw Rakowski. Actually, I want to see what her pit stop time is. She only spent 42 seconds on pit lane. That is technically she technically has the third or fourth slowest time down pit road. Whoa, big moves to try and break the slipstream. Though she technically had the third slowest time down pit road, it really wasn't that far off. The average time is about 41 seconds, so yeah, what we did see there with her parked diagonally in her box didn't end up costing her a whole lot in this race, really anything. She continues to try and keep Brian Son back there for what is P6 in the Delta class right now. And JB Dejou, a couple cars ahead. Dejou, Mikulicek, and Ost are battling for P22 overall. Ost and Mikulicek are battling for P4 in the Delta class. And it's been kind of an up and down day for these guys. JB's kind of been stuck in the middle of all these Delta drivers for a bit. Ost, we've seen him had to make a little bit of a recovery earlier, but he's gained 4 spots in this race thus far. Paul's up 6. Who has gained the most spots? I think it is, it's both Paul, oh no, it's Jacob Wally. Jacob Wally has gained 8 spots since the start of this race. So he gridded in 27th, all the way up to 19th. And he's not done. He's got Mark Darnell ahead of him, and then Damon Mitchell not too much further up the road. And Darnell actually goes wide in that corner, and he's going to pit. That is an early stop. I'm not 100% certain that you can make it to the end if you stop now. But we'll see how this plays out for him. It is going to be just fuel, and actually, maybe we are in the window, because Jess Rakowski is going to do the same thing. And look, that time she managed to get into the box correctly. This time she knew that she had the box closest to pit lane. We've seen, I think it was, I don't remember if it was Christian Ost at Lime Rock. We've had 1 or 2 incidents over the last couple seasons where drivers missed their box just because they didn't realize it was the first one on the list. Actually, a fun trivia fact, Wojciech Sawidovic would have won the Season 6 championship if not for him not qualifying at Mid-Ohio, getting the final pit box, and then missing his pit box on pit entry, costing him points that I believe eventually made the difference. But it was a huge moment in that championship. I think it's the biggest instance of something like that happening in the series. So here we go. This is probably the most important moment of the day for the Battle for the Delta victory, right? Brian Inagaki's strategy is about to come to fruition. Oh no! Oh no! He's putting tires on. Is this intentional or not? We'll see. We'll see. But that could throw a wrench in that strategy. He may have forgotten to tell the crew to not put tires on the second time around. By the way, those crew members, the fire suits for the crew, very well done. Nice team kit. He comes out of his stall after a 24-second stop. Now, I guess that's not the end of the world, but that's about a 8 or 9 second longer stop than people who are just taking fuel. So he's going to have to make up about 8 or 9 seconds on the fresh tires. So we'll see how that plays out for him. I think it may have been intentional because he spent 24 seconds on pit. It was either intentional or he managed to tell the crew to not put on the rears, but I think he's managed to only put on the fronts. So we'll see how that plays out. He came out in 9th in the Delta class. So, I mean, already he's not in a bad position to begin with. He's sitting 29th. He's got all of his pit stops done. So let's see how this plays out. He had like a 7-second lead prior anyway. So, I mean, the tire, it may not be that much of a tire gamble. You put on good tires, you get dropped back right to the rest of the Delta field, but then you have the tires to battle everyone all the way to the end. So, Dejo has gotten around Ost here. And these guys have been running bumper to bumper for quite a few laps now. Just over 21 minutes left here at Mosport. I think John Lazan and Raymond 2 are going at it. Into turn, or into Moss, they were very close to each other. And I think we're going to see a lot of fighting after the second round of pit stops. Everyone is making sure that their strategies come to fruition here. So these guys are finishing up their fuel saving, they're finishing up their tire saving. And for the guys that waited till the very end of the pit cycle to pit last time, till lap 17, theoretically, you double that up, and you could get to lap 34. So you're a much wider pit window this time around. Mitchell Rickmeyer has just been passed by Mark Darnell. Or no, he passed Brian Son. Okay, something's happened to Brian Son. Oh, that was an old event. I'm not sure what happened there. I think he got passed by Mark Darnell, and now he's under pressure from Brian Inagaki on the left side. This is hugely important for Inagaki's Delta victory hopes here. Throw it around the outside on the new tires. Not able to do it there, but Rickmeyer goes a bit deep. Got to come back to the apex, but he stays ahead of Inagaki for the moment. The 34 still 9th in the Delta class. And Rickmeyer goes very narrow there, however. So into turn 1, Inagaki will have a shot. And side by side, down the front straightaway, across the start-finish line, into turn number 1, Inagaki through into P28. And now he can start hunting down Mark Darnell. We're looking at Raymond 2 and the Slug. The Slug has lost touch with Mike D'Amita a little bit. And he and 2 roll through the final sector now. Let's see, the Slug pitted a little bit earlier than the others. Actually, some of these guys pitted on lap 18. The really late pitters, Goldner, McKenzie, Schink, Carr, and Mike D'Almeida. Those are the guys, and Connor Acatella. That group pitted on lap 18. Matt Zepka is on pit road for his final stop in the Sea of Veloster, and they'll service him with a little bit of fuel. So compared to, say, Brian Inagaki's first stop, where he took a short amount of fuel to go to the end of the race. Well, actually, I think Zepka may have pitted earlier the first time as well. So not a great comparison, but he spends a little over 13 seconds in his box. That's closer to the amount of time the first pit stop takes rather than the second. So he may have short fueled the first stop. He comes off a pit road and emerges onto the track in 22nd. Cooper Akers is also on for his final stop. Michael Polasek has extended his lead since the start of this stint, but not by a whole lot. He has only been able to put 8/10 on Micah Hendricks in the last, well, I guess almost 20 minutes now. So very even keel, and I think Polasek is probably quite lucky that he broke away from that pack early on, or that the second place car wasn't Hendricks or Goldner instead of McKenzie, because there may have been less fighting and he may have not been able to break away as easily. But now he's in a position where he can chill out and hopefully cruise to victory in the 45 for the second time this season. John Lazon and Jacob Wiley are both on pit road, and Wiley pulls into his stall, Lazon into his. Lewis Gilbert and Spencer Clark inherit the Delta lead since Inagaki has gone to the back on his strategy. And Christian Oss is a little further down the field. So Gilbert is back on top for the moment. If Inagaki's strategy works out, however, when he comes out of the pits after the second stop, he may not necessarily be the leader. And Clark has just been kind of quietly hanging on through all this. He and Gilbert have both gained 7 spots since the start of this race. They've kept it clean, and they're both on for at least the Delta podium if they can stay in this one. Just over 16 minutes to go here at Mosport. The third round of the 12th season of the Alpha Touring Challenge is well underway. And Polasek's championship aspirations are very much on the path to being fulfilled here. He's shown great pace early in the season thus far. Last season, very close fight with teammate Logan McKenzie. He picked up a huge amount of wins. I think it was 8 total. So a second one here today. It ought to be 1/4 of the way to matching that total through just 3 races. Further down the field, we haven't talked about them. We haven't talked about this group in a little bit. Ian Bertolucci and James Carr. Carr's been hanging on to the back of the SRG driver, slowly making his way up to try and make a move here at the end of this race, right before the pits kick off here. It'd be nice. All these, if you're a driver, as pit stops are coming up, if you get a chance to pass the guy ahead of you, you love to take it, because when you pull down pit road, you're limited, obviously, by the car ahead of you, like how deep into the pit lane entry you can go, how deep you can brake. So if you go on, if you're the lead car coming down pit lane, that's just a free half-second advantage while you're on pit road. It's huge. Ben Aiken has come down for his final stop. Spencer Clark's on the back of Lewis Gilbert, and here is an interesting conundrum for him. Do they fight or do they work together? He has chosen work together as he comes off the back of Gilbert's bumper, and Gilbert takes the racing line. They are driving like they've been working together for some time. Gilbert doesn't seem too concerned about Clark throwing a move up the inside. Maybe a little bit of smart racing from both of them as we come to the end of the second stint. Now, McKenzie did eventually catch back up to this group. So Hendricks, Goldner, McKenzie is the order in the battle for second place overall. Paul Mikulicek is on pit road, and that's going to be his last stop of the day. And Craig Lautenslaughter and Jacob Wiley going wheel to wheel through the final corner. Jacob Wiley pulls ahead, staying in P23 on track right now. And Jacob Wiley is up 5 spots since the start of this race. I believe he's the only breakfast for dinner driver in the Audi. And Micah Hendricks has come down pit road, and this is kind of the result of him having to stop earlier because of the strategy he's on. And look at the lap traffic that Goldner and McKenzie are about to encounter. Hendricks may have pulled off to avoid this as well. And this is actually Paul Mikulicek, and Brian Inagaki is in this group as well. And Mitchell Richtmeyer. This is going to be interesting. Here we come up to Moss. Eric Goldner on the back of these guys along with McKenzie. And this could prove to be a problem as they all stack up behind Darnell. Goldner has to take evading action, and McKenzie stamps on the brakes, and all the cars come to a stop. Mark Darnell is on the back of Jason Lind there. Mitchell Richtmeyer will let the 2 lead cars through. But that is exactly what Micah Hendricks wants to see. He was down on strategy. He was in trouble having been the lead car, but that has just cost Goldner and McKenzie at least a second on that lap, and there are 4 cars ahead of them. I doubt either of them are going to want to stay out another lap, even if they have the fuel, and surely they do have the fuel, but this has just not turned out well for them. A massive gaggle of cars, and 4 cars are not going to obey blue flags all at the same time. I'm sorry, they're just not, and they both do the sensible thing. They come down pit road, but the damage has been done, and I think Goldner may have made contact with the rear of Jason Lynn there as they come down pit road. You see Chris Young, Brian Son, and Craig Lautenslaughter are leaving pit lane as this group comes on to pit road. And I think Goldner and McKenzie are a little lucky that they got out of that one. And Goldner missed his pit stall a little bit. Whoa, he missed it a lot of bit. And McKenzie is away, and he leaves before Goldner even really starts to fuel up the car. And that is devastating. Goldner just lost track of where he was in the stall. Maybe he couldn't even see the flag man because of what was happening there. But he comes out, and he's going to get passed by Connor Acatella here. Acatella has not pitted yet, but that is going to heavily hurt Goldner's chances at a podium. Hendricks is the big winner. He is 1.2 seconds ahead of McKenzie as McKenzie exits pit road. Just over 11 minutes to go. Micah Hendricks is once again on the cusp of losing the draft of his rivals behind. And he has Mike de Almeida acting as sort of a bridge car here. And Almeida hasn't pitted yet. But the leader, Michael Polasek, is on pit road. And he just needs to make this a nice, clean pit stop so that he can bring this one home, because he's got enough to believe there's really no risk here unless he makes some kind of fatal mistake. Francois Schink will stay out, so he will go. He'll go ahead and pick up a bonus point for leading the lap as well. So he and McKenzie both managed to pip that by staying out and leading the lap while Polasek is in the pits. Bertolucci is on pit lane along with Raymond 2. We'll see where Bertolucci exits. There goes, where's James Carr? There goes James Carr. So Carr pits earlier and ends up winning out. He undercuts Bertolucci, comes out ahead. Bertolucci flashing his lights as he exits pit lane, saying, okay, you got me. Clark and Gilbert on pit road. Clark got around Gilbert and took the Delta lead before they came down pit lane. So here we go. Clark stops in his stall. Gilbert stops in his. Neither of them are taking tires. Here come JB and Ost. Clark's away. Gilbert's away. Where is Brian Inagaki? I don't think this strategy has worked out, as he's not even come out ahead of Paul Mikulicek. So taking tires is not going to work out for him. And Spencer Clark is going to come out well in the lead of the Delta class. There goes Jacob Wally. And then it'll be Lewis Gilbert back in P2, so Clark getting past him before pit stops was huge. Christian Ost is going to come out ahead of Paul Mikulicek and Brian Inagaki. And Inagaki, who at one point was leading, is now all the way back in 5th in class. And Mark Darnell is going to try and send it up the inside of him to turn 2, but not able to force him off his line. Francois Schink comes into pit lane for his final stop. We'll see how this compares to Daniel Mills. Where's Mills? He is a little further back here. Mills had a slightly longer pit stop than some of these other guys. So here comes Schink, and Schink will be ahead of Mills. It's going to be close down to turn number 2. Mills will have the momentum. Sends it up the inside of the Sia driver. Oh, he's got his nose right on his quarter panel, but he can't stay on the outside of him, and he just cannot stay there. Schink tried everything he could, but Mills comes out ahead after the pits, and that was very, very close. And Connor Acatella still has that front end damage. I'm not sure what is going on there. And more battling here. Paul Mikulicek, Brian Inagaki, and Mark Darnell into the corner. A little hip check there. Brian on the right side, I think he's going to win out, and he finally does. He is around the 70, and the Veloster beats out the Elantra in this specific contest. Darnell going very wide as he tries to hang on to the back of that group. We are in the closing laps here at Mosport. It's been a calmer race than the last 2 weeks, but definitely no less hectic than any of the other races from last season. You see Micah Hendricks working through some lap traffic here, and McKenzie's on the back of him. So they go around. Let's see, that's Craig Lautenslaughter. Then they also made it around Jess Rakowski. You see McKenzie now saying, okay, please let me through. He's going to send it up the inside. And Craig's going to hold it there, and they've done that quite nicely. So Hendricks stays ahead by 0.6 of a second there. McKenzie is closing that gap, and the battle for P2 in this race is not completely over yet. Spencer Clark is on the left side of Jacob Wiley here. He's in the Delta lead. Why not go ahead and not fight that too much? But he is going to fight it. Not able to keep the nose in. And something's happened to Lewis Gilbert. Oh no, he's been running in P2 and P1 in the Delta class for so long today. But now the front end of that car completely destroyed, and he's trying to limp it back to pit lane so he can finish this race. At least, he might finish 35th. Oh, that's gonna hurt. That sucks. And I did not see what happened there, but something major. And Daniel Mills is gonna be under attack. Francois Shinks looking for that top 5 on the left side of the RD Sim Sport driver, and they're trying to work their way around Lewis Gilbert, and Shinks gonna use him as a pick to go around the outside, and here comes James Carr as well into this little mess. So now the battle for 5th is up to 3 cars, and Shink pulls back ahead in that little contest. John Lazon's been looking at the back of Slugnificent for a little bit. This is for 12th. Lazon started in 7th. So any positions that he can gain here, he'd like to see gotten back. The Slug has been in pretty much the same spot the whole race. He's gained 1 spot since the start. And I thought I saw someone go off track. I think that was David Thomas. He's running behind Matt Zepka here. Zepka is running a very lonely race. 4 seconds to the next car ahead, 10 seconds to the next car behind. But the field in general is just sort of spread out at this point. Hendricks and McKenzie, and then Slugnificent, Lazon, and Mayer. Those are the closest battles on track at the moment. And McKenzie is very close to Hendricks, actually. 0.2 of a second. And 5 minutes to go in this race. Polisek's lead is right at 5 seconds. It's barely grown since really halfway through this race, but it doesn't matter. And, oh, something's happening. John Lazon has been put into the wall. That is right before the entry to Moss. And I think it was him and Matthew Mayer that got together, because Mayer has heavy right front damage. And not only that, but Matt Zepka goes through. So this is going to grant, it takes the heat off of Slugnificent. He can cruise to a P12 now. Zepka is going to pick up a couple positions here, because Lazon and Mayer drop behind him. But then I think Mayer may be able to stay ahead of his SRG teammate. He's got a 9-second gap to Mitchell. And no, he's going to have to come in to fix the damage. It's too much for Matthew Mayer, and this race is going to end in tears. And he'll have to use that fast repair. And Daniel Mills is coming. No, he's under pressure from James Carr, and Carr backs out of it as they come to Moss. And that's going to take some pressure off of Francois Schink, who's firmly into P5. So now it'll be Mills and Carr battling for 6th in the Alpha class. Spencer Clark, his lead in the Delta class is currently 13.8 seconds. Inagaki's strategy did not work out. Lewis Gilbert ended up crashed. Spencer Clark has kept it on track. He's managed the pit stops well, and he is on for what would be his first not only Delta podium but Delta win of the season. And it would be a big help to him, because for someone who finished so high up in the Delta standings last season, he's been a bit further down after a weak first couple of races. So this will be a huge jump for Spencer Clark. Last season, Spencer Clark in the Delta class, he ended up finishing 2nd. He was 55 points off the eventual winner, Jacob Wiley. But you could say then with Wiley, who is the car next to him, with Wiley gone, with Wiley in the Alpha class, Clark is the heir apparent to the Delta class. And this is his first real demonstration of him grabbing at that inheritance. Brian Inagaki was looking for a move on Christian Ost into the final complex, but wasn't able to find anything, and that is the battle for second in the Delta class. So even though Inagaki's strategy didn't work for the win, he's still in a position to take P2 here, and he's going to be on better tires than Ost. Ost defends to the right side of the track down to turn number 1. On board with Inagaki. And Ost, not the best run out of turn 1. He's trying to pick a side of the track. Inagaki to the right side. Ost goes a little deep. Gathers it up. Stays ahead. And Michael Polasek will be getting the white flag next time by. Inagaki trying to make room where there isn't any room. Just trying to scare Ost off his line. And he looks like he has so much more grip than the Elantra driver. And here we go into Moss. Let's see how much he closes up to the back of the 157. Looks to the right. And look at this. He's so far off the racing line, just trying to scare Ost, trying to find a little opening. And he's still managing to stay on the back of Ost. So he has so much more speed through these corners, despite taking the suboptimal lines while he's looking for a way through. He's able to just come back onto the racing line and power out the same way Ost is. And now, down to the final corner, Ost decides, I'm going to go the inside, Inagaki to the outside, not alongside. And if you aren't already alongside the car on the entry of the corner, there's not a whole lot you can do if you're on the outside. So the battle for P2 stays stagnant. Michael Polasek is just behind these two, actually. Ost the bad exit. And now into turn number 1 for P2 in the Delta class. Ost tries to squeeze Inagaki over the curb. Inagaki in a big slide into the wall. Oh, he just couldn't gather it up. And with 2 laps to go for these guys, Inagaki is going to slip back behind Paul Mikulicek. And Paul's going to take P3. He's going to jump onto the podium. Now Inagaki's going to be in trouble. He's got to stay ahead of Son and Lautenslager here. Oh, another slide, and it may be too much damage to finish the race. Oh, no. And the car that just went by him, Michael Polasek, he has a 5.3 second advantage over everyone else. As the clock hits 60 minutes, he comes up through Moss, ready to take his second victory of the season. Micah Hendricks leads Logan McKenzie out of that corner as well. I think he may hold on to P2 here. Brian Son's going to let them by. For Michael Polasek, though, down the back straightaway, he will become the 9th different winner at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. He will win the 12th race in series history here, and his 2nd race of the season. Polasek across the line. He wins for Yellow Flag Motorsports at Mosport. Micah Hendricks just defends McKenzie in the final corner for P2, and McKenzie rounds out the podium. Then it will be Eric Goldner finishing up in 4th. Francois Schenck will be 5th, with Daniel Mills and James Carr right on his bumper. He manages to stay ahead. Bertolucci, Almeida, Acatella, and here comes Raymond 2. He's not going to be close enough to do anything. So now we're looking at Spencer Clark. He's still in the back of Jacob Wiley. I don't think he's going to be able to make this pass, but he doesn't need to. Last season, he became just the 2nd Delta driver in series history to score a podium finish. That was at New Hampshire. He almost won that race, to be honest. Now he begins his hunt for his first career Delta title with his first Delta victory this season. Out of the final corner, Spencer Clark for Sia Autosport for the first time. He wins at Mosport. Christian Ost will bring home P2 in the Delta class after all that happened in that race. A nice drive from him. Gained 7 spots overall. And then third, oh no, a big crash there at the end. And Paul Mikulicek, I was going to say he's going to finish on the podium. And I think he will. Oh, but Mark Darnell's car won't work. Oh, it's busted. And Paul was trying to let him through, and it's a big act of sportsmanship here. And that's actually not going to affect Paul's finishing position even, because they were the last cars in the lead lap. But that's a shame. Paul was trying to show some sportsmanship, because I think he may have wrecked Mark there. But Mark couldn't get the car to go, so Paul tried to back up behind where Mark towed from. But I think that I'm still seeing Paul is scored ahead. But it was good to see him try. And he does finish on the podium there on the Delta class despite all that. So this race is over. 1 minute and 5 after the green flag. And another one in the books here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. A real staple in this series. A real difficult track to nail down a safe lap on and a fast lap on at the same time. Next week, we're taking a break. Week 13 has happened. The TCRs have gotten rain tires. There's updates abound. So go chase your sim racing dreams. And we will return in 2 weeks' time when we come back to Charlotte Motor Speedway for a sprint challenge, one of which will be after the sun has set. So we will take one final look at our results from this race before we head off and pack up to head to Charlotte in a couple weeks. On top, it is Michael Polasek for Yellow Flag Motorsports, 5.5 seconds ahead of Hendricks. He really only put about 2 seconds on that group after he broke away from them, but that was all he needed. It was well driven, a lot of lap traffic to manage today, but he did it all with flying colors. Hendricks ekes out McKenzie. It felt like we were in season 10 all over again watching those two battle. Great to see Hendricks back at the top and in P2. So that's your podium, Polasek, Hendricks, McKenzie. Then you have Goldner. He won the first race at Olton Park last week. Manages a P4 this time around. Then you have Schenck, Mills, Carr, Bertolucci, Almeida, and 2 rounding out the top 10. Acatella, the Slug, Zepka, Mitchell, Wally. That is the top 15. That's the Alpha class all the way down to the first Delta driver, Spencer Clark, with his first victory of the season. For Curb Your Enthusiasm Autosport, that's his first victory with that team after joining them this season. Christian Ost, P2 in the Delta class, down in 19th. And then Paul Mikulicek, 21st overall, 3rd in the Delta class. He and, Complex Penguin Racing, they took 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the Delta class, so hats off to them today. These are the rest of your results. Well, that's going to do it from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Once again, thank you so much for watching. We are off next week in 2 weeks' time. Charlotte, we'll see you there. Have a good night.